We had been planning for this webinar for so long, and finally it's come together. We are so happy to be able to coverage on this in on our media platform, Citizen Matters. So, yeah. Uh, yes, Vaishali is back. Yes. We'll begin now. Um, so good evening, everyone. My name is Shruti, and I am the Mumbai reporter for Citizen Matters. And I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar on behalf of Oorvani Foundation. Um, at Oorvani Foundation, we enable citizens to take civic action by sourcing and sharing knowledge and by creating an empowered community. We have three initiatives. The first one is Citizen Matters, which is a collaborative city news platform on systemic issues and citizen-led solutions. Uh, the second is opencity.in, which is an urban public data portal. Public data and documents are made open to citizens so that they can take action, and it enables data-driven and democratic cities. And the third one is Change Network, which includes courses, workshops, and other programs to help citizens to learn, engage, and to act. Um, let's come to today's webinar. Accessing education for a child with disabilities poses unique challenges. Though there are legal provisions to ensure that they get equal opportunities for education, things do not necessarily pan out like that in reality. Schools may, in fact, at times even refuse to give admission to a student with disabilities. So, in that case, what recourse do parents have? How can they support the education of their child at home to bolster the efforts of the school? This webinar will address these questions. It is a culmination of a series of articles that we did in Citizen Matters on inclusive education under the Sudha Mahesh grant. I would like to now introduce our speakers. We have three eminent speakers today. Uh, Prasanna Shirol is a dedicated father of a child affected by a rare disease and has been a trailblazer in rare disease advocacy in India since 2007. As the co-founder and executive director of ORDI, Organization for Rare Diseases India, he has played a pivotal role in raising awareness and support for those impacted by rare conditions in India. Pratik Aggarwal is our second speaker. He is the executive director of Astha, a community-based organization that has been working on disability rights in the urban informal settlements of Delhi for 3 decades through grassroots interventions and research. He leads Astha's efforts to ensure equitable access to health, early childhood care, inclusive education, and life skills for children with disabilities across its 7 community centers. And our third speaker is Dr. Vaishali Pai, who is an occupational therapist and a qualified early interventionist practicing in Bengaluru, India for nearly 40 years. In 2009, She founded Tamahar Trust, a not for profit, to provide holistic services for children with disabilities and their families at Malleshwaram, Bengaluru. Tamahar Trust caters to children with developmental disabilities and provides support to their families through multiple therapies developed over 16 years based on a rigorous pedagogy. We also have with us today Abhay and Prezi from Signable. They are our sign language interpreters for today's session. I would like to now each speaker will speak for about 6 to 8 minutes, and then followed by that, I'll have some questions for them, and then we'll throw it open to the audience for questions. That's the format that we're going to be following for this webinar. So I would like to invite Prasanna now to set the context for today's discussion and to tell us a little bit about the challenges that parents face while accessing education for children with disabilities. Prasanna, over to you.
Thank you, Shruti. Good evening to everyone. Thanks for having me here. It's my pleasure to be part of this important discussion. Can I ask somebody to share my?
Yes, Prasanna. Just give me a minute. I'm bringing
Yeah,
it
yeah,
up.
yeah. So till by the time we have slides, I'm Prasanna from ORDI. ORDI is Organization for Rare Disease India, which is an umbrella organization supporting 7,000 plus rare disease. This is a 12-year-old organization working in the area of advocacy, awareness, patient support, etc. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. Okay, I am talking, based on my experience, personal experience with my daughter Nidhi, and also the various interaction I had with more than 5,000 plus patients of rare diseases in the country from last 10 years, and about the challenges in the education. So my daughter was a Pompe patient who was medically challenged, and 17 years she was on ventilator. That was through trichostomy, and she had to go to school and colleges with three machines. We encountered various challenges right from the beginning, but however, we continued the study and she was doing well, and we reached up to degree college. While she was studying in the degree first year, her ventilator switched off in the college and she had a cardiac arrest, and we lost her in November 2023. And during the course of time, we had a lot of comorbidities and other things, and we overcome one by one, effectively. Next slide, please. So, roughly for the new viewer, when we talk about rare diseases, there are 7,000 plus rare diseases. Most of them are genetic in origin, and 80% of them are, neurological in condition, and it basically affects the children. And in India, if you talk about it, 1 in 20, that is roughly around 7 crore people likely to be suffering from one or the other rare diseases. Next slide, please. So whenever we talk about disabilities, we always talk about a physical disability. That's what comes to my mind. I mean, everybody's mind. But if you look at RPWD Act, there are 21 types of disabilities, and I'd like to focus more on three conditions which are listed. One is neurological and chronic condition, blood disorders, multiple disabilities. Most of these diseases or the condition in this category are genetic in nature and falls could be a rare disease, and they are all progressive disabilities, because when we talk about disability, it's a fix. That's what everybody says. Okay, there is a problem in one of the either a hand or a leg, eyes, ears, and it stays forever, but it is not so. Why? Because let's understand what are progressive disabilities. Basically, it's a condition that gradually worsen over the time. It is not stagnant, it is not static. They evolve because the symptoms keep on worsening or a changing need on a, and their impact on long term. It is not one time, and it is not the person alone. because of the challenging nature as a medical disability or a medically challenged, they live, everybody is involved, even the families and also other stakeholders. So when we talk about progress disability, today is not equal to tomorrow. Today, if the child is going to school, tomorrow it may not be. There is a different change. I think that is the first one. And independence. If somebody is coming on a wheelchair, like as I mentioned, my daughter was on a, you know, on a tracheostomy, so she has a different. And there also, because of the comorbidity and other things, it keeps on changing. And every role, be it a teacher at the school or at the home, it keeps on. And and it is, every day we have to undergo a different new thing. And when you talk about the families, as we discussed, diagnosis is a challenge, and adoption, then progressive loss of function, and how do you cope up, because most of these conditions mentally they are very fine, they are not intellectually challenged. So when you talk about, children who go to school along with the treatment with a changing need and medical intervention, so that inclusive education is definitely at a question mark in the country, and which is essential for equity. Next slide, please. So if we talk about major challenges, obviously the awareness, the people are not aware. One is the parent itself. They do not know what are the challenges, what are the rules are there, rights, and even the colleges, schools and institutions, even the teacher do not know about the acts, etc. I think that is where all of us need to work on the awareness part, including the school, right from getting the education in the school. And when you talk about policy, I can only say absence of a policy, although we have RPWD Act and NEP Act, but they are not focused on medically challenged. They are again, at a very low level. And implementation is definitely a challenge. If you go to the school, tier 2, tier 3 towns, in fact, in tier 1 itself, nobody cares actually. The attitude has to change here. And of course, there is a shortage of special educators and counselors. And third and most important is the infrastructure. If you are able to cross these two and get an admission, how do you go to the school? Because school do not have a proper infrastructure, toilet, transportation. Even if the school admits, how the parent carries such children every day to the school is a question mark. And even at the school, since they are like any other normal child, if you admit them to a normal class with a normal school, then there is a lot of stigma attached to it, because you do not have the students, the peers or the friends do not treat it properly. And when the sometimes the parent also feels that, okay, there is a, they always correlate with the infectious disease kind of a thing, and there is a always a tic tac. And talk about support, absenteeism is always there, because these people, along with the physicality, they have to also go to schools and also take other therapies like physiotherapy, occasional therapies, etc. So there is a lot of absenteeism which is expected. Then how do you bridge this gap? If there is a hybrid model, definitely it works, but there is a, also there is no focus from the schools on such things, because they, the rules do not allow, and if you remain absent, you will not be eligible to attend the classes. And the curriculum, it is not individual plan, because definitely there is a lack of assistive technology in most of the school. They don't use for different needs, and timetables, exams, all those issues are there. And the last but not the least, patient support, at the school. When you talk about these children with the medical disability, those support system is absolutely nil. We may not have doctors, parents. There is no discussion as a team. Individually we might discuss with the school, or individually we might discuss with the doctor, but there is no interlinkages where each one try to understand the need of a student. I think these are the major issues when it comes. Next slide, please. Just to give an example, when my daughter was initially going, we went to the school where there is a lift facility, provision was made, but it was never switched on. In fact, it took 3 years to request the management to switch on the or install a thing. So we went very slow, thinking that, okay, at least they have given us an admission. But after 3 years, when they did not switch on, then we have to take the different route, and then we gave a deadline, and finally they installed. But during those 3 years, when you have to lift a child on that, the security guard is to disappear. I think there are, every day you cannot go to the management and ask. I think these are the challenges. But however, then when you to come to the classroom, these people were not involved in the normal curriculum and physical activities. So if every student goes outside for a games or a PE class, she has to be staying alone at the classroom. Next slide, please. Then with a continuous discussion with the doctor, principal and other thing, finally after fourth year, you look at the movie, the first picture, she was made to be part of the drill exercise or among this, not in sitting in the classroom. I think this has evolved over a period of discussion and engaging, making them awareness what is important. And then when you talk to the another example of the right side picture shows exam center. First of all, they did not allow all these medical institutions, medical equipments to in the classroom. And my wife or nurse has to be there because there is a such thing. So in fact, it took almost 2 days in advance to go to the exam center and convince them. And finally they made her to sit in a big auditorium, a single child. Can you imagine a person who is writing 10th exam, making her sit in one big auditorium separately? What is the tension, what is the mental status? But however, we crossed it because she also had a different need. Like this, there are really challenges and we have to overcome. It is not one. I'm only trying to highlight a couple of them. Next slide, please. And another important thing when we talk about progressive disability, COBER, see, one is scoliosis operation where you have to skip the school for 5 months. Then what happens? There is no bridging, instruction or a teacher or extra classes. The candidate has to, prepare on ourselves, or a parent has to make an extra more. And when it comes to, we had to lose out a class for almost an year because we had to go for a immunosuppression therapy or a chemotherapy. That time school did not allow us to attend the class or exam because of the attendance. Then we went for a NIOS, which we were able to cover. But again today, many parents do not know what is NIOS, National Institute of Open Schooling. How do you use it, at what time, is such. I think there is a lot of exercise need to be done, homework need to be done by both by parents in talking to the institutions and other things. Next slide, please. And again, apart from, assume that you everything goes right, your institution is correct, you get an admission, everything. But how do you as a parent take the child to the student? Like in the first, we have to prepare a separate wheelchair where you can fit UPS suction machine and a ventilator. Then a car is required, then different kinds of wheelchair and needs. So there is a lot of financial investment also. I think many people or most of the people cannot afford. To extent we could afford and continue our education, but these are really really burden for the parents also, apart from the challenges what we have from the institution, education policies, etc. But it is a complete burden on the families. Next slide, please. And another thing, when it comes to progressive disability or a special child, we only focus on the education, but there are many talents which this child has. Apart from that, how do you focus on them? Because there is a little time. And I think if somebody focuses as a parent or a school, you can come out. Even we never knew that my daughter was a drawing in her early school. One of her painting was selected for an international painting competition, which we never knew. I think that is how the school and parents, when we start working together and understand that we will be able to bring out hidden talent among the children, not just focusing on the mainstream education. Next slide, please. So another two example I would like to give. These are the two siblings, who have completed BE, working in Bangalore now, and in spite of all, imagine, they were in a tier two cities. Now they are almost around 30 years in terms of age. Can you think 30 years back how was the education system, what kind of a support system they had, and how the parents suffered? But in spite of all those challenges, today these two children are working in an IT company, and in fact very recently they have taken a 1+ crore house also, which a normal student will not be able to take. What I'm trying to tell that these children also are equal to a normal child. If you give them, nurture them, right environment, right education, and right infrastructure, they can be much more contributing citizen than a normal person. Next slide. Thank you, that's all from my side.
Thank you. Thank you, Thank you, Prasanna. You have really set the context for today's session. And you've spoken about the challenges and the questions that parents have to face. And to address those, now I will invite Pratik, who will be speaking about what are the policies, existing policies, and what parents can do in case schools refuse to cooperate with parents. Pratik, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Shruti. So I'll speak for around 6, 7 minutes, and then we'll get on to questions. Let me know if my video lags in between. I'll switch it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Prasanna. I think we have a good base now, and uh, I think thank you for all the visuals. Made the journey of a child with disability in schools very clear. I think those are some of the questions even we have struggled with as an organization who've been working for more than 3 decades now on ground, and just to ensure that how do children with disabilities reach school. So I think one powerful idea that we have in principle is that education for children with disabilities is now a fundamental right. I mean, if not a fundamental right, at least a human right, which is now been validated by a law. So it's not a matter of who says no and if they're allowed, if it is a charity. But yet every day we do see that parents, are often told that probably your child can't be admitted, or we don't have those specific facilities, or try a different special school. I think those are some of the statements which we have been hearing on ground as well, and I'm sure a lot of parents and families and caregivers listen to that. So in terms of frameworks and so in terms of frameworks in law, we have three broad frameworks. I mean, what we have is the Right to Education Act 2009, which has now gone under several amendments. And in 2012, if I'm not wrong, included children with disabilities under its ambit. And then, of course, we have Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. And the third, which is the most powerful law which is used in the disability ecosystem, is the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Interestingly, the RPWD Act 2016 also talks about the sites of education for a child with disability, which can be chosen by a family. And there are three major sites which are being talked about in the law. One is the special schools. The second is the home-based education, and third is of course, the mainstream education system. Um, and in terms of inclusive education, the law is very, very strong. So, Prasanna was talking about a lot of issues which happen on ground, and we completely agree. Uh, I think those are the real challenges which families face. But it's also important to see what does the law say. So the law says that for children with benchmark disabilities, which is children with above 40% of disabilities, the law guarantees right to education, inclusive education, and reasonable accommodation. So in terms of reasonable accommodation, the law gets into detailing of what is it. So for a child who needs braille devices, for a child who needs alternative and augmentative communication services, for a child who needs uh, big phone books, for a child who needs accessibility. So the law is very, very strong on that, the RPWD. And then the RT talks about 25% seats of reservations. It also talks about non-denial, and it also talks about how children with disabilities are entitled to support systems like resource teachers, aids, transports, and of course, home-based education. Yeah. Um, in terms of grievance redressal, I mean, so one is the law, but the second is also what is happening on the ground. And we don't, and often we don't see these provisions of the law getting translated into ground, So we still see that there is denial and abuse for children with disabilities when they go to education schools. So what we say is we have a three tier grievance redressal mechanism system, which parents must do. The first is that we must take from either the principal or the educator or the special educator in writing that what is the reason for them to deny admission in the school to a child with disability. I know it's always not easy, and it leads to confrontation. But we've seen, because we work with extremely marginalized population, we've seen that whenever parents get together, they go in a group and they directly speak to the principal that under what provision is it really happening? Why is the child with disability being denied, and can they give it in writing? Um, Principals and educators generally do budge. We also need to see that the responsibility of education for a child with disabilities is just not on the special educator. The responsibility of education for a child with disability, just like all other children, is on the whole school. The principal, the general teacher, everyone is responsible for this child, and they must also be held accountable. At the school level, we also have a very strong body called School Management Committee. Often we've tried that family members of children with disabilities must become part of that committee, so that whenever we are discussing about school budgeting, school planning, the parents are there, and then they lead conversations on design, on accessibility, and what actually makes a school welcoming for all children, including children with disabilities. So I think this is one thing at school level which we must do. We've tried, and we've also find a lot of success, and success not with confrontation, of course, because whenever you're challenging system, you do tend to have some repercussions. But I think school will budge. The second, of course, is at the block or district level. So we usually go to the block education officer or district education officer. We worked in Uttar Pradesh, we worked in Odisha, we worked in Rajasthan, we worked in Delhi. One thing which we are now seeing after the 2016 Act is that across the system we have a narrative of non-denial. What happens in a school is a different matter altogether. But if you do speak to the district education officer, if you do go to uh, the RPWD committee, which should be there, if you go to the state commissioner, everyone does say that a child with disability should not be denied, should not be denied admission. So I think those are also potent bodies of grievance redressal. Um, we've also seen that the third reason, I mean, the third way is to go to the education department. So just like in Delhi, we have a department of inclusive education, and those officials have been accessible either through email or WhatsApp, or the grievance redressal processes. The fourth one which we've used is that, which is the most powerful and also powerful in the law, in the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, the role of state disability commissioners. So we've seen that every state has a disability commissioner. Delhi, unfortunately, is the only state in this country which doesn't have a disability commissioner for 2 years now. But all other states do have a disability commissioner. A lot of states in their districts have a disability welfare officer or social welfare officer, and they do take complaints. They do take complaints about non-denial, not not just non-denial, but also if there are any rights not being met for a child with disability, if a child is being asked to come for just 2 days a week. So this is also the second stage. So sometimes the school does admit enroll a child with disability, but the real question comes is, are they getting the same quality of education as their non-disabled peers? So I think the role of the disability commissioner, as well as the state commission for protection of child rights, is very, very important. We've had a very active DCPCR, what is Delhi Commission for Protection of Child Rights, which was very active a couple of years ago, and both of them are very important, I think, to file those redressal um, systems. Um, so I think I'll just close in next 1 minute, and we've seen that it's easier said than being done. I mean, filing complaints, going to the commissioners is never easy, but I think we've seen that instead of organizations, instead of formal spaces, it's better if parents come together and then they file complaint. It's better if it's being done in groups, and it is better if it is documented everything. So it's better if 10 parents go uh, to a commissioner, and file complaints, because I think the disability commissioner is um, has such a powerful role, and they always welcome any denial of rights for children with disabilities. So I think the fundamental question is that, do children with disabilities have a right? And the law says yes, but we see a lot of gaps on ground, and I think these are the few mechanisms which we have done, and which have worked for us well. I'll be happy to answer any questions, Shruti, as we go on, but I think I'll stop for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Pratik. That really helps. You laid it out very, very clearly. What are the steps and at different levels, how you can also escalate it if it doesn't work at a particular level. You laid it out very clearly. Thank you for that. Next, we will, and I also have questions. I'm sure our participants have questions too, which we will take in the latter half of the session. Next, we have Dr. Vaishali Pai, who is going to speak to us about how parents can also support the education of their children, what they can do on their own at home, or what they can, how they can help their children, how they can bolster whatever the school is doing. Over to you, Dr. Vaishali.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you, Oorvani Foundation, for having me here. Am I audible enough? Is it loud enough?
Yes, yeah, very clear.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So my task is easy. We have a parent's perspective. We got a legal perspective. Now I'm going to try and throw some light on the general aspect of children with disability and education. Um, like Prasanna ji has already mentioned that it's an umbrella term, right? So you can't just have one response for one disability. Unfortunately, it's a gamut. So the first thing to understand is that you cannot have one solution that fits all. There's going to be multiple solutions, and unfortunately, that is something that we don't have. Like he also mentioned that easily one comes to when you talk about disability, what comes to mind is physical or deafness or blindness. But rare diseases, regression, or severe intellectual disabilities are something that doesn't come to mind because they are not so easily seen. And we cannot have solutions for everything at the same level. So we must remember that there need to be different programs for different conditions, because otherwise we're not doing anybody justice. Having said that, there is another thought that there are two parallel visions that work. One is that of the government and the schools. The other one is of the parents. So we heard what the government has been doing. You know, they have been putting in legislation, and there are a lot of laws and support to the families. There are schools who, quote unquote, are inclusive. But actually, if you go to see, the inclusion is very restricted, which again we have seen from Prasannaji's presentation. So the schools have their own restrictions in terms of, in spite of the number of legislations that have come in, there is very little which is percolated down to the ground. So the teachers, unfortunately, haven't had enough exposure to what disability actually means and how can they help. So our constant thought is children who have a good functioning cognition or understanding, logical reasoning, they are the best to be able to be included in a classroom. But what is it that the other supportive structures that they need? For a person who can't see, there may be an audio feed, or for a person who can't hear, there needs to be some other method of responding, because it's not just about a child sitting in a classroom. It's about participation. It's about being seen, about being heard, and about being included. Now, if a teacher or a school does not know how to do that, then that inclusion is meaningless. So we do have schools that say inclusion but cannot complete the inclusion. We have schools who do not understand inclusion, and hence, the accessibility, physical accessibility, and support systems are not in place. But I also want to talk about families. What is it that the families want? Very often, most of us have grown up in a rote learning situation, environment, right? We have learned through rote. We have learned A for apple and B for ball. But when it comes to many of our children, they need experiential learning. So, what is it that the parents aspire for their children? Do they want? And this is a ground reality. I've met many families who tell me it doesn't matter whether the child understands or not. I want the child to complete 10th grade. And here I'm talking about specifically about children who have low intelligence or low intellectual capacity, or alternative intelligences, where they cannot make sense of what is being taught to them. They can rattle off everything, they can tell you numbers from 1 to 1,000, but they do not know what that 1,000 means. What exactly does 2 mean? How to count it and how to use it logically. But a lot of parents so I'm not being judgmental here. Sorry, parents, that is not what I mean. I just want to throw light that parents need to be very aware of what is it that your child is going to do when your child goes to school. Is the child going? Be very clear about it. Will the child be going to school for socialization? Then work on it along with the rest, the school and the peers. If the child is going for just the knowledge that I spoke about, it's okay. Just let the child do rote. It doesn't matter. But if you really want integration, if you want functional independence of the child in the end, then you have to be very clear that you might have to step back, take a good look at what the capacity of the child is, and go with the speed of the child. Sorry. So, having said that, one other important part, which we're discussing education, but what we also need to remember is that education actually starts from birth. When I say education, I mean learning. Learning starts from birth. And a lot of children with any kind of disability are unfortunately not able to get in that learning. And in the West or in the more developed countries, we know that this is called early intervention. In India, we do not have that concept yet. We don't understand what is early intervention. By early intervention, a lot of us believe that it means giving the child speech therapy or physiotherapy. That is not what early intervention is. It's about the ability of the child to make use of the entire brain, to learn things by watching, by self-experience, etc. Just wanted to make a point that when there is a child with disability, have they had the benefit of early intervention? Because that is what will actually decide how easily the child will integrate into an education system. I'm not going to talk too much because we already have heard a lot. But what I want to, through this talk, what I wanted to say was that I would rather that parents become aware of what is it that the child actually requires. Parents understand and accept. Acceptance is a major thing, so that they can make informed choices, informed decisions about how to progress further through the whole literary journey of their child. And whether we want our children to finally, when you talk about inclusion in a society, there are a lot of other things, and what are we doing about it? So, like Prasanna ji again said, that he didn't know that his daughter knew how to draw or how to paint. So, how much of attention are we paying to the non-education, non-literacy things that our children need to learn? Are they doing the non-academic things? One important part of going to school is socialization. And how are the children benefiting? Because children benefit, they learn a lot through being in the midst of children. But at the same time, it's a very narrow road, in the sense that if a child is not able to function adequately within the peers and is being ostracized or kept away, then the negative connotations of that are much stronger than the positive connotations of being in a regular school or mainstream schooling. I want to leave everyone with just this thought that we did hear about a lot of conditions being spoken about, but it's also important to understand what is the kind of the extent of this problem that we are looking at. I'm taking only a very small size segment of the population. 1.74% of the entire population are children with intellectual disabilities. And out of which about 20% are with moderate to severe disabilities. So together, if we look at it, there are nearly 25 lakh children. I just want to leave you with this thought. And a lot of times what happens is that early identification of this does not happen. And hence, families are left to go from pillar to post looking for whatever support systems that they get. And ultimately, when a school agrees to admit their children, they're excited. But the qualitative performance of the child has no bearing. The future qualitative performance of the child has no bearing. So I just wanted everyone to leave everyone with this thought that as parents, be very, very aware of what is it that your child requires. Once you become aware of that, then translation of what the child learns in school becomes very easy at home using basic kitchen items at the least. So, yeah, I just wanted to say these few things. I hope I have covered some of the points that you would have liked to hear, Shruti. And yeah, we'll go ahead with the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions and then we'll throw it open to the audience. So my first question is for Pratik actually. Is there a checklist of documents that parents need so that they can avail of all the policies and the laws that the government has made for children with disabilities?
There is actually, Shruti. Right from, first of all, thank you, Vaishali. I think I agree on a lot of points, and it's been reinforcing this entire idea of education for children. Sometimes we miss out on the socializing part. So, completely agree. Coming to you, Shruti, of course, there are documents. What I'll do is, I'll also put my National Disability Helpline's number here on the chat. People can reach out, but in a sense, we have access to resources starting from enrollment of a child with disability to grievance redressal mechanism, on how to make a UDID, disability certificates, how to update them, how to apply for pensions. So we have access to those resources, and I'll be happy to share, and we'll also put in a contact here for reference.
Yeah. And my second question is also for you, and then I'll move on to the other speakers. Online and offline, what are the kind of resources that are available for children with disabilities, and where can they access them? And because under Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan and also NEP, they're supposed to be given online and offline resources. So where can they access them? What
Re-
kind of resources are available also?
Resources as in for education of children.
Study, yeah, like study material or material which is tweaked or tailored
Yeah.
to suit a particular child's needs.
See, of course, I think Vaishali and Prasanna will also answer, but see, in terms of sign language, so we see what are the resources do we have? Do we have enough content or videos on sign language? And again, we have a list of resources, of government resources, starting from ISLRTC's YouTube page, from their application to certain teaching learning material, which is all available in sign languages. Yeah. So I will also share those resources with you, Shruti. It's completely online. It's completely online, completely free sign language resources. So that's one. Coming back to, as other speakers were also saying about, we also need resources for children who can't see in audio form, you know. So again, we have a repository of NCRT books and other books which are in audio formats. And we also give small MP3 players which are, you know, low cost for children to access those. So just like that, I mean, of course, it might be possible that there would not be there would not be everything in one go, but I've just given you two sets of examples which work for those conditions, and I'll be happy to put in list of resources and share.
Yeah, that will be great. Dr. Vaishali, if there is a special educator is not there, many schools do. I know that they're supposed to have one, but I know that there are schools which do not have special educators. And like you rightly pointed out, I don't know, one of you pointed, it's not just the special educator. It's not just upon the special educator to educate the child. So how can parents work with the class teacher or the subject teacher to ensure optimum learning of the child?
So there are multiple ways that we actually learn, and like I mentioned, that self-experiential learning is the best learning for all of us. We experience, we remember, and it's a permanent memory. So it takes a little bit of effort. It would take a little bit of effort from on the parents' side to probably be in contact with the schools all the time, with the class teachers or the subject teachers, and figure out what is being taught. Like, one of the things that I always talk about is that I wish my physics teacher uh, knew how to teach physics in a way that I could understand. Because now I'm making a lot of sense of the physics which I learned in school, because I can use it. I did not understand gears at all. I did not understand pulleys at all, but now I can understand because I'm experiencing those things. So it's easy to teach children if we get into the simplest methods that are possible. But what it would require is for the parents to go and be in constant touch with the teachers. What it would require is for the schools to be open enough to welcome the parents inside, and not just ensure that the child completes the task or completes the homework or the classwork, but as long as there is learning and as long as there is some outcome from whatever topic or subject that is being taught. So I think this simple thing can be worked out. Like, I always give the example of, we have plastic, those cups which we make a tower of. We've all done it when we were growing up. As young babies, we used to put it. What is the use? The use was not to be able to actually coordinate and put it. I mean, that was one of the learnings that we had, but it taught us sizes. And where is the best way to learn the sizes? The sizes can be learned in the kitchen, and that's what most of the younger children love to do. They love to sit in the kitchen and play with the vessels and put one vessel into the other. Now, this is a more simplistic example that I'm giving you, but something similar can be done. It would require work from the parents.
Yeah. So when there are children with severe disabilities, home-based education is an option that SSA is giving us. So I'm like you're saying, the importance of socialization is immense, and schools plays such a big role. So it's not an easy choice for parents to make. So under what kind of situation should parents opt for it? That's one. And what kind of resources are available to parents to I think that Pratik has already answered, because like he said, there are a lot of online resources also. But under what situation should parents opt for home-based education?
So the restrictions would be mainly financial or physical, where it is absolutely impossible to take your child from the house to the school or to any educational system. That would be the one of the biggest things. I mean, like Prasanna ji mentioned, he had to have an adaptive wheelchair. He had to make those machines which fit into the wheelchairs, and have people aware around Nidhi. People had to be aware that when she has difficulty in breathing, what needs to be done. At least call the parents, so something like that. But according to my thought process would be that if a child has real severe difficulty in engaging, I mean, Nidhi's case was different. She could engage with her peers. But if
Hmm.
there are children with severe disabilities that are finding it difficult to engage, then I would rather say that opt for special schools rather than home based schooling, simply because it gives the children an opportunity to get out of the house, to experience life differently. It allows them to learn, observe things around them in the school, and
Hmm.
it could also benefit the parents by giving them some time off, and that
Yeah.
some time and the caregiving they need to give themselves is extremely important. It is always downplayed. We believe that parents have to 24 bar 7 look after their children, which is not true, and in the long run it doesn't help. So I would rather opt for that.
Yes, I think you touched upon a question that I wanted to ask the psychosocial support systems that caregivers also need. Yeah, thank you for answering my questions. Um, Prasanna, my question to you is, how can parents and community members come together and advocate for laws and for implementation? Like Pratik was just saying, it helps when a group of parents come together and approach an authority. So how can they um, advocate for laws and for their better implementation?
See, when it comes to this special child, if they are going to a special school, then all the parents are available at a single source. But when the special childrens are going to a normal school, then you may not have those many childrens together. For example, each school may have one or two. I think that is
Yes.
where the more difficulty is. And when it
Yeah.
comes to, if they are going to a special school, I don't think this is necessary, because most of them are addressed because they are meant for this. The major challenge is a special child going to a normal school is the real challenge. And with one parent, it's very difficult to touch base with other and form a group. I think the major challenge lies there. And as an individual parent, they cannot talk to the management regularly on this issue, because there is always a fear that tomorrow they might you know do not entertain my child, or I may not get proper attention, many things. So always it is, parents say that, okay, at least they have given admission, let it go, and they try to
Mm.
suppress all their requirement, although it is part of the law. uh,
Mm.
and everybody expect that NGO like us or Pratik fight on our behalf, or take up the issues commonly by a non-profit organization, but that is not always the case.
Can organizations like organizations like yours or Pratik's, can you put parents in touch with other parents so that they can form a group and approach authorities together? Like you said, it's not always possible for you to fight on their behalf, but can that networking be done? Is that possible? Does that happen? If either of you
uh,
can answer.
See, the organization was with a doctor. Time we also coordinate with the doctors, and many times the doctor have gone to the school and made them understand that it is an issue. Hello,
I think
can
my
you hear
your
me?
voice is, I don't know whether it's my network
Hello.
or yeah.
No,
Uh
his voice was breaking.
Can
Prasanna
you
ji,
hear me
your
now?
voice is breaking. Yeah, this is
yeah,
better.
your voice is breaking. Yeah. You
Now is
can
it okay? Okay.
yeah, yes. Yes.
So I was saying that within our own group, for our own children, we do that coordinating with the respective doctors and other parents in and around. Like, in particular area, if there is another parent, we always talk to them and connect them each other, that understand, what are the differences between two schools and do it. But it is not done very, methodically, because our core objectives and, every day are busy in those things, number one, and also we do not have bandwidth to handle other things. We always bank upon, like, Vaishali ji, when it comes to disability, go to Tamar and they will take care, kind of a thing, but it's not done organized.
Yeah. Pratik, would you like to add anything to this?
No, I think Shruti, I think Prasanna ji is right. It's easier said than being done. I mean, sometimes it's just one child with disability in a school. So I mean, again, I think the issue remains the same, that one has to fight a lot. And we've also, one of my colleagues is here in the meeting, Vinod Kumar, and he has filed complaint often, and he has also received, not so pleasant remarks from people who are complaining. We also had situation where even if a group of 10 to 15 mothers has complained, what Prasanna ji is saying is absolutely correct. But we're also seeing that, one has to push. So it has repercussions. It's not always easy. Um,
Mm.
but I think it's better if there's a group, or what Prasanna ji is saying, they are doctors. So those things might work. And I think one has to try and do whatever possible, and different strategies might work in different context.
Yeah, I think we'll throw the questions open now for our participants. Some have already typed the questions, so I'll start with those, and then if you can just ask your questions, that also works. So, are materials available in Kannada? That's the so local regional languages. Are they available materials? Is that Marathi, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Bengali? Are they available in these languages also, or
For us, I mean, there are some materials. I mean, I know for a fact that there are materials available in Marathi. There are materials available in Tamil. Of course, maybe not everything, but again, if the parents do contact on the helpline number, it's also available on WhatsApp, and will help in accessing those, at least whatever there is access to.
okay, okay. Um, and how can we report the abuse of a child with an intellectual disability at a special school? And this is specific to UP, to Ghaziabad. And if there is any helpline where people can contact, where they can contact if a child is being abused in a school setup.
So again, Shruti, there are three, I mean, major ways, and Prasanna ji and Vaishali ji can also come in. I think so. What we are saying is that every district has a social welfare department, who majorly takes complaints, and then the next step is the state disability commissioner. UP is a big state, so the disability commissioner would have a lot of responsibilities, unlike Delhi. So it's better that the complaint goes to the social welfare office, and if one just Googles it, they'll find a email or a phone number or the address where one can go and file complaints.
Okay, okay.
The disability commissioners, in my experience across states of this country, respond on emails. So regardless of the size of the state and everything else, they do respond to complaints. The state disability commissioner's office.
Okay, okay. I think Rima has asked a question. How to assist children with more than 60% intellectual disabilities housed in boarding schools in rural areas. So Rima, how can parents assist them, or if you can just clarify that a little bit?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, my question is, as a volunteer, right? How can we assist those children having more than 50% intellectual disability, and they are like they are in boarding schools, like they're away from their families. They have families away from their families. They are staying in boarding schools, and that too in rural areas where not much assistance can be reached quickly, or not much, tutors or like educators can reach quickly. How do we assist them? What is the extra services we can provide to see that they are getting educated, like they're getting the education, like if they were staying in a city? Like when you're staying in a city, the services available or the education system will be more advanced than when a child is staying in a rural area. So how can we help in that way as a volunteer also?
Shruti,
So,
Vaishali has her hands raised.
yeah, Vaishali.
Yeah, no, I had my hand raised for the earlier question about, who do you appeal to when there is abuse. One of the things I just wanted to, sorry, Pratik, I think, I just wanted to add to what you were saying is
Sure,
that,
sure.
yeah, the commissioner, the disability commissioner is bound to take the case to a logical end once you complain to him. So a written complaint needs to be filed. Now, this is easier said than done because there may be repercussions of a lot of nature. But that is there in each and everything that we do in our society. But what I wanted to focus on is that the disability commissioner, has to take it to a logical end. So he can't just, the file just can't be forgotten. So that is one way of doing things. As far as Rima's question, I don't know who was supposed to, who do you want, uh, who would you like to hear the answer from?
Anybody is fine. I'm saying, like a volunteer, what can we do to assist children in a boarding school in rural area? There, the education provided might not be as far as what is given in a city.
So actually, to tell you the truth, the rural schools that I have seen, not boarding schools, but rural schools that I have seen are so much more encompassing. At least a child is sitting in the classroom amongst peers. What as a volunteer you could do is exactly what I suggested earlier as to how a parent can teach. Because a teacher is ladled with so much work that she may not be able to single out and explain this, and that too you're talking about a high um, level of impairment. So you can just fulfill that role where you take the child aside and you do activities, you do experiential activities that help the children learn. It will all depend on how the rural school, and since you're saying a boarding school, what are their requirements? So they might have multiple requirements, and even taking the child out to a nearby shop in order to buy something might add uh, an extra layer of experience to the child. So I mean, there are multiple ways. We just have to think about what do we do in our regular everyday lives, and can we do that with the school's permission with these children?
Okay.
I hope
So,
Sure.
that helps.
Yes,
a-
yes, it does. Thank you, Vaishal.
anyone would like to add to what to this answer? If
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly I would have said the same lines as Vaishali, but it makes sense, Shruti. I mean, I think it also depends on what kind of condition and what kind of context. But as Vaishali ji is saying, a lot of things could be done in just those in just those settings and resources, And we've seen with children with disabilities, just need to give them as much exposure as possible through multisensory activities. I mean, a lot of sound, touch, movement, learning. So for blind kids, we see that we don't give them access to audiobooks. We don't give them access to tactile material. So for a lot of kids with mobility restrictions, we don't give them access to education because of their mobility. And it's not that they can't learn, they can't grow, they can't study, So, in regardless of whatever context we are, I think the more we engage children with disabilities, using all kinds of activities and using play as a strong medium, works wonders for them. We've had scenarios where our children have performed exceptionally well in music, arts, sports, theater. So I think depending upon the context you're in, there are a lot of opportunities. And I think, I mean, as volunteers, sometimes we also need to shed away that thinking that, only super specialized services should be done with children with disabilities. I know those are important as well, but a lot could be done, as Vaishali is saying, in those context with the resources we have.
Yeah. There's one question about vocational training. Vipasha has asked, is there any provision for vocational training of caregivers of children with disability, as this can help in financially supporting the education of such children? Vipasha, would you like to ask this uh, question yourself, or vocational training for like the parents of children with disabilities? Is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Vipasha, and currently I'm working as a clinical psychologist with the Hans Foundation. So we basically work with children with disabilities, so people with disability in general. So sometimes I get this sometimes I get this complaint from parents that that we are not, matlab, like one is they are not very well you know financially stable, so they want to contribute, because when children with disability, they add to the burden, financial burden. So in order to cope with that, I wanted to ask if there is any provision for vocational training, like any specific vocational
For pay,
centers which can provide, yeah, caregivers
yeah, for
specifically for
caregivers.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vaishali
Well,
has her
yeah,
hand.
yeah. I would like to answer this question because I'm extremely excited that this question was asked. I want to share with you that we have started such a program uh, where caregivers are being trained both in skill development as plus entrepreneurship. So the idea is to try and get them involved and give them enough resources to be able to start some vocational program that they would then involve their children or maybe other children around, with the disabilities, and develop some system. It may not be a large sum of money at the moment, but it is a beginning of something. And I'm very excited that you asked this, because we've been working on this project for the last 2 years, and we are now ready to take it to the next level. So it is possible. Now, to answer whether there are multiple such organizations like ours who do it, I'm not very sure. That maybe, an internet search will help you find that. But yes, but we do it, and we think that it's a great way to actually dispel a lot of things, a lot of difficulties.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Uh,
ma'am. I think I would love to know about the program.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
You can
maybe you
connect
can,
with me.
yeah, Vipasha, maybe you can get in touch with Dr. Vaishali. It's great. Yeah, that you had this question, and the project is already is happening. So Shatrupa has a question, and any one of you could answer it. Do educational institutions have enough resources to train teachers or educators to handle diverse classrooms? Do our existing policies and laws address that aspect? So is there like a special fund, or is there enough money and resources for training teachers to handle diversity in classrooms? If any one of you could take it. Uh, Maybe Pratik, maybe you speak about
But
it.
Yeah. See, I mean, if we look at Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, they do have dedicated funds uh, for training. We've also now seen uh, general teachers undergoing 5 days of comprehensive training, in a year on inclusive education practices. But see, with governance, what are we seeing with governance? We are seeing that for inclusive education, our teachers are just being trained in one disability. A lot of teachers that come to Astha have undergone their diploma in, let's say, autism, and then someone else comes with being studied in blindness, and then they go to uh, government school, and I mean, surprise, surprise, you have 15 children across classrooms who are probably not from the disability that you have studied in. So where does the school come in? So I think yes, it's about resources. See, organizations like ours are happy. I mean, we are going to the schools and say take our training, and it's not just one. I mean, I think lot of organizations across this country are going to schools and say take our training. We are here. Um, the problem is that with the governance is so skewed because you have a cadre of teachers who are being trained in one disability, and that mindset is not going to shift in 2 or 3 years. So there is training, yes. The short answer is yes, and the long answer is what I've given. Um, Generally, what's also happening in inclusive schools is that they've created a segregated system inside the schools because of no fault of their own. I mean, it's just one special educator who has, let's say, 25 kids, and then they bring the kids to a so-called resource center where the child, which what Vaishali was saying is, so the entire idea of socialization goes for a toss, because now again they are different rooms. So they do undergo training with NGOs, with government. We've seen training happening on TOTs. I think a lot is happening than what was happening 10 years ago. So that's for sure. I mean, we've moved the needle a bit, but still a far-fetched dream for someone to get trained in what you say inclusive education practices. Are there any courses? We also have to ask ourselves: are there any formal courses on B.Ed in inclusive education, M.Ed in inclusive education? So I think that's also
Mm.
something.
I have a follow-up question. So how practical is it for a teacher to be trained in more than one disability? Like you're saying, it's just one specialization, but is it practical for them to learn pedagogy or how to teach how to teach more than one
So
disability?
what do the government summarize guidelines and other non-negotiables say? I mean, broadly, we're also saying that there'll be some things which will be non-negotiables. There'll
Mm.
be some strategies of creating a classroom which is multisensory in nature. But again, as Prasanna and Vaishali is saying, what we are saying is probably not possible in a classroom which has 50, 60 students and just one teacher. Uh, you know, but because you're asking a theoretical question, I'm answering in that way. There will be strategies which can work for a lot of kids if we design it well. The entire idea of universal design can work well. So for a lot of kids, Shruti, I mean, if we just do a model approach, we used to make models of volcanoes and other things in our childhood. A lot of our kids have undergone a 6-week bird walk program, and they were cross disability students. It has worked well. The problem is a lot of teachers don't have the privilege of the right student to teacher ratio, and the training is too late. So it is possible in theory, but then there are a lot of bottlenecks on ground.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions? Do the participants have any more questions that they would like to ask our speakers? Yeah, I think Arushi has raised hand. Yeah, Arushi?
Hi, yes, good evening. Hi. So, I am a person with disability and I also run a disability advocacy initiative that works to create awareness about students with disabilities in schools. Right? So, our entire idea, in a nutshell, in very, very brief, is to educate the youth of the country for them to create inclusive classrooms, because across the discussion, what points have also come to me over and over again are several, but not to take too much time. But one point that keeps coming to me is that again, what Pratik just said, right? Not many teachers have the privilege of a very good teacher to student ratio. Number one. Number two, B.Ed, the usual B.Ed does not train them to work in inclusive classrooms, quote unquote, right? So we train the youth. We say, okay, you spend the most time with your peers with disabilities. You will now learn to create inclusive classrooms. But in my experience of attempting to reach out to schools for this training, for this module where we want to do need-based training for students, the entire quote-unquote defense again they come up with is that, oh, we are inclusive. And by inclusive, what they usually mean is that they have special educators and they've taken probably a couple of kids, say maybe in the ADHD, LD, ASD spectrum, and maybe a couple of kids with locomotor disabilities, right? So we are inclusive. Now, and a lot of times I'm seeing this rampant confusion about what is an inclusive school versus what is special education, right? क्या inclusive schools के अंदर special education हो सकती है? Because for inclusive schools the fundamental was कि not every child needs to be in a special school, right? That's why we said कि okay, inclusive schools, the schools where children with non-disabled children should study should be taking disabled children if they are cognitively at par with them, right? But a lot of times inclusive schooling is now being confused with the entire idea of special education. Okay, we have that, so we are inclusive. how do we how do we break this? I'm also slightly confused, how do we break this entire idea of आप inclusive school है तो you have to take a child with disability if they are cognitively at par and they are not supposed to be sent to a special school. I did my schooling from what we call an inclusive school, right? Because I was cognitively at par. How do we break that confusion? How do we say that okay, इसको special school की जरूरत नहीं है, आप अगर inclusive है, you have to take this child not just because they have a disability, they should not be pushed to a special school, which is again something that is happening very rampantly in what I see in my work.
Arushi, would you like anyone specific to answer your question, or
Anyone can answer. I'm good with that.
would anyone like to take this question? Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, to me, personally, to me, it's a very simple decision. I think that it should depend on the cognitive functioning of a person. Okay, because when you have a person who is cognitively not on par with what is being taught in an inclusive school, you're doing a disservice to that child. I've had multiple examples of children going to such inclusive schools and coming back, uh, families distraught, coming to me when the child is in the ninth grade, saying that, you know what, he's acting out, he's throwing tantrums. And you can imagine a 14-year-old throwing tantrums. It's difficult to control, right? And when you dig further, they tell me that the child has a math ability of a first grader. So obviously there was a discrepancy. So what were you doing? Why was this child passed? Why was this child forced to learn something which did not make any sense? So for me, it's a very, very simple kind of a division. You know, that if the cognitive ability does not match, then please do not insist on inclusive schools. It's on one side we say that, the community starts understanding disability better. So but at what price? At the price of this child? I don't agree with that price. It's the entire there are better ways to create awareness than to make a child sit in such a inclusive setting, which is not helping the child, maybe helping a lot of other things.
Arushi,
Agreed.
does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Would anyone like to add to what Vaishali said? I will request everyone to please switch on their videos for a second so that we can do a photograph, if that's possible. If we can just
Yes, Shruti, I have a good photo. That's
Yeah.
okay.
If there are, if there are no more questions, then we can close the session. Is there anyone who would like to ask any more questions? Then I think we can close the session. Thank you so much to all three of our speakers. You have really, I myself had a lot of questions because when I did my articles, I had a lot of questions. So you've answered so many of them and so clearly. And thank you so much. We please follow us on social media because we do keep having different kinds of events, webinars, workshops, data jams on a range of topics. So please follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Twitter, so Facebook. Please follow us so that you can also participate in other events again. Yeah. Pradnya, um,
Yeah, Shruti. Yeah.
uh, can we close the session then? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, the participants also. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.